When I consider the journey of a character's development in film, I tend to initially accept whatever superficial presentation the story insists upon focusing. The good guys are heroes, the bad guys are villains, the supporting characters in supporting roles are supportive. Okay, I can accept that and simply enjoy a film for what it is. Sometimes, a film's narrative provides more depth and understanding into a character that makes their characterization more complex and layered. Yet, even so, these additional traits and background are, for the most part, obvious. Or made obvious so the audience doesn't have to ruminate too deeply in order to uncover any hidden depths of a character within a story. However, what happens when a film, whether intentionally or not, masks the true understanding of a character beneath the weight of its story, making the process of defining character nearly impossible to ascertain? Such a movie is La Bamba, and I have a few questions. I think it would be presumptuous to assume that everyone knows the story of Ritchie Valens and his ultimate fate alongside Buddy Holly in The Big Bopper. But in case anyone viewing this video has never seen La Bamba, nor has ever heard of Ritchie Valens, I would encourage you to pause here and do a quick search to catch up to speed, because I cannot promise a spoiler-free analysis of La Bamba. Don't worry, I'll wait. Our story begins with the indicative trope of dreams reflecting reality, as Ritchie's nightmare vision of a fiery plane crash echoes his fear of flying. There is also a supernatural sense of foreshadowing with each abrupt and intrusive return to the nightmare throughout the film, which raises the question of, what is the signification of dreams in La Bamba? Obviously, the movie presents the nightmares of the planes crashing over Ritchie's former school as a premonition of his own fatal plane ride, resulting in the fruition of that dream. Conversely, Ritchie's dream of becoming a rock and roll star runs parallel to the nightmare, also coming to fruition, but whereas the former constitution of dreaming results in death and sorrow, the latter brings triumph and joy. Already we see a conflicting message within the film, but there are still other representations of dreaming. Ritchie gives his mother Connie her dream home, and starts a relationship with Donna, his dream girl. Rosie pursues her dream of a life beyond the migrant work camp, which ends up being a nightmare. Meanwhile, Bob's dream of being an artist doesn't quite turn nightmarish, but instead shrivels into something unfulfilled. The meaning of dreams are both promising and disastrous, and the resulting effects of them being fulfilled or deferred have a lasting impression on the characters. Ritchie and Bob's obsession with their dreams is a motivating factor for them and helps to define their characters. Whereas Ritchie seems to face little opposition and never lacks for support of his dream's obtainment, Bob's dream is constantly met with scorn and derision, unable to draw himself out of the shadow of his brother's success. Ritchie's shadow looms so large over the entire movie that he becomes an irresistible force, full of charm and talent and positivity. He's almost saintly. Bob, however, is portrayed as angry, violent, and jealous, full of self-pity with flashes of generosity and humor. The two brothers have already been compared by Rosalinda Fregoso in a chapter from her book, The Bronze Screen, wherein she likens La Bamba to the incarnation of the second coming of Quetzalcoatl, seeing similar aspects between twin Aztec deities. She provides an in-depth accounting for the film's connection to the rich, vibrant symbolism within Neo-Mayan and Aztec philosophies. But I can't help but compare Bob and Ritchie to the Judeo-Christian telling of Cain and Abel. Ritchie's talents and prospects are more favored by his mother, just as Abel's sacrifice were found more worthy by God. Despite Bob being the reason for the family's chance at upward mobility, as well as being a skillful artist, he is shunned and undervalued, just as Cain's sacrifice was found unworthy. Cain and Bob's jealousy causes a rift between their brothers, resulting in Cain killing Abel. And while Bob doesn't directly murder Ritchie, if we are to follow the supernatural logic of La Bamba, then we could surely lay blame on Bob for breaking the protective talisman that Ritchie always wore, the one he wasn't wearing on his last flight because Bob broke it off. Or is Ritchie better compared to Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun? Certainly there is a direct parallel between the risk of flying and tragic plummet. But what sort of lesson is there in it? Should Richie have not attempted to, metaphorically, fly as high as he could with his musical talent? At 17, should he have stayed grounded with school as his main priority, while the fame and fortune could have waited? Who wouldn't gladly pursue their dreams as Richie did, if it meant they could be successful and prosperous at it? A major factor in Richie's success is his mother, but her character's integrity is polarized. Once again, as Rosalinda Fregoso suggests, Connie's obsessed with Richie and his career, while ignoring and demoralizing Bob. It's "that's my Richie" for one son, and "flunky" to the other son. She supports Richie dropping out of school in order to tour the US, but she was the one who got Bob locked up before the movie began. If we return to the biblical comparison of La Bamba to Cain and Abel, then does this make Connie God, the one who favors one brother over another? Is that fair to her? Does her portrayal within the narrative render her from an actual person to merely an abstract reason for Richie's achievements and Bob's failures? Furthermore, this creates an aberration of motherly love, which is ideally understood as being unconditional, but is transformed into overindulgence for Richie and cold authoritarian for Bob. This same form of objectification is applied to Rosie, who sees herself as a sex slave and childbearer, but it's a role that she lashes out against. The amount of pain and suffering she endures is a testament to her character's strength, even if it is tragically so. While her verbal diminishment of Bob may also be used as blame for his resentment, she too is victimized by his alcoholism and abuse, which turns her from the wide-eyed, smiling teenager to the hardened mother she becomes. There are multiple examples of the characters in La Bamba inescapably influencing one another, which is reflective of the musical aspect of rock and roll itself, as the category was shaped from a hybrid mixture of genres. And while the music serves its own function throughout the film, I'm more interested in talking further about Bob. His character provides a fascinating examination of a person who feels completely separated from the world, yet tries so desperately to cling onto something that will give him a sense of fulfillment and belonging. His relationship with Rosie is symbiotic and transient, leaving him ashamed. He uses drugs and alcohol to numb his remorse and anger, but their effect is periodic and temporary, causing him to turn to them more frequently. His work as a trash collector cannot satisfy his creative spirit, and even being a part of a biker gang leaves him feeling all the more lonely. Despite Bob's frequent visits to a shaman in Mexico, he cannot fully conform to a life of spirituality, and thus, religion cannot cure his sense of aloneness. Bob's cartoonish drawings are the closest he becomes to feeling a sort of unity to the outside world, as the effort of his creation comes from his own passion and desire instead of someone else's. He even tries to use this creative force as a bridge to re-establish a connection to his mother and brother by helping with the promotional material for Richie's first concert. But there is no change in the dynamic between the characters. Perhaps the most symbolic image of Bob's ultimate aloneness and separation from the world is the last scene of him crying out for Richie. But is there still hope for Bob? Should Connie have been Richie's momager? Was Rosie better off staying with her father? And should Richie have kept calling himself High-Tone? Is La Bamba a feel-good but tragic depiction of a loving family that perseveres? Or is it a study of how even the closest of us may unwittingly use each other to the detriment of all? Take a look for yourself, and let us know what you think. Hey everyone. I think what I like most about La Bamba is that as a musical biopic, it doesn't turn into one long music video just to push someone's song. The music is great and classic, but it doesn't overshadow the narrative and the characters. But what I find most interesting about the movie is the making of it. Lou Diamond Phillips initially auditioned for the role of Bob, while Esai Morales auditioned for Richie, and they only discovered Lou after seeing 500 other people and deciding at the last minute to audition in Texas. And it took years to write the script, because there wasn't much research available for Richie Valens, so the writer and director relied on the family to help tell the story, and even had them on set for much of the film's production. That's a lot of dedication. So, we're looking forward to doing even more reviews, and we're always looking for our viewers to help with deciding what to do next. I've seen Shot Caller a couple of times, The Warriors, Coming to America, Sucker Free City, so give us some time and we'll do our best. And keep those ideas coming, as always. Likes and subs are appreciated. Thanks so much for watching.